Michael's house too. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen detail offices
Yeah,
recently because they're working on
it doesn't happen often, you know, you
Just
like,
going.
if it's tree work, for example, you know, we've had 3 significant accidents in this community. The 1 fatality, and 2 people were hit with branches coming from, you know, from tree work. So in many instances, if there's tree work on for example, Damon and Gould Street, I recall driving by there one day, seeing there's a cop directing traffic there, but what they were doing is they were stopping as they were ready to drop a limb. They would stop any vehicles coming in there, and that was actually requested by Ash Point Tree Company that they have that cop there. So sometimes it looks odd that you may see a cop there. Sometimes it is odd and it shouldn't happen, to be quite honest with you, but in the vast majority of the cases, people our officers use common sense and will not force the service provider or a utility to do a detail, but it does happen on occasion, for sometimes legitimate and sometimes it slips through the cracks. But we do have a policy in place for that.
Mr. Jones.
Which page? Page 7. We received notification that we did receive we did receive that funding. It came in late. The state was late in providing the. Yeah, it's still hanging in there. We're last year we used it to sign a 3-year lease with Connect City, and that's that mass telephone notification system that the town has. And that was through a police grant. And this year here, we're refocusing back on the drug problem somewhat too. Mm-hmm. It's specific reasons, yeah. Yes. Yeah, the asset forfeiture program, we receive, if we participate in a drug investigation that culminates in arrest and seizure of property through working with the district attorney's office, state police, or with the federal government, and we generally work 90% of the time with the federal government because they give you a better deal. We receive a split based upon the time and effort that our agency committed to that investigation. And that is absolutely controlled by state law. It's in the control of finance and the police department, and it can be used specifically for drug enforcement, for purchasing equipment that's relative to drug enforcement, and for education efforts that are specific to drug enforcement. So it's absolutely tightly controlled by law.
Cover investigative time and overtime and things like that?
It can, and we have used it for that kind of stuff in the past. Right now, there's a very limited amount of money in it. I think it's about $7,000 in there. We have a lot of pending cases out there that could have a significant impact on our ability to fund efforts in the drug enforcement area in the future.
Last question.
No.
It's both on 9 and 10 sheet. Item 6, we're going to hire a sergeant inspector.
Yes.
And that carries over to 9. Says something different, alternate funding source.
Yeah, it's. I've had a philosophical discussion with Mr. Balukunas regarding if, in fact, we are the benefit of significant funding from the feds on several of these cases that we've been working on with the DEA. It would be my goal as chief to fund a sergeant detective's position. Detectives perform significantly critical tasks. They're dealing with with sensitive information at a much more frequent base than the average law enforcement officer. Their skill sets are heightened in the area of interrogation, investigation, evidence gathering, and so on and so forth. And they're also, they're at a more high risk for putting themselves in line for liability. So it doesn't make any sense to have people in those critical positions unsupervised. And right now, we had a sergeant detective for a number of years. Hank Pinnell was one, Lieutenant Hayes was another. When he was a sergeant, he was a sergeant detective before he retired. Yeah, yeah. And then somewhere along the line, that position just wasn't carried through. It would come out of those asset forfeiture funds, yes. I'm not, I think, and I can't give you a specific figure because it's all up in the air, and a forfeiture has to go to court. It's like it's a civil law, it's a civil suit against a piece of property, and so there'd be like a town of North Reading versus a 1985 Cadillac, and that goes before the court, and the court says, okay, you can have that Cadillac, or cash funds, or a house, or whatever, and you put it on the market and sell it. And we have a number of those cases that are pending with the DEA, and that rises to a significant level. I feel confident that we will be able to pick that up for several years, and then we'll have to revisit that through our budget or make a decision to handle it a little differently. Yeah. Yep.
I think it's a ways off.
Get lost, I guess.
I think it's
About the sergeant thing.
yeah, I guess you can go ahead. I was gonna just say the concern that I have associated with things like that is that, like a lot of these federal grants, when we brought and expanded the force, and then 2 years later it's gone, and all of a sudden we're scrambling to cover that cost. So, not that this isn't a bad idea, but there's no guarantee of the future of a revenue flow to support that cost.
No, and we've actually sat down and talked about that. What would be the duration, what would happen afterwards?
Additional cost between a patrolman or a detective is an additional stipend between a detective and a sergeant is. Are you talking an additional stipend above the sergeant's salary to be a detective sergeant?
It would be, right now, detectives are compensated at 4.75% higher than their uniformed peer.
Right. So that would follow through then as far
Yeah,
as the
so
sergeant.
it would be the
level.
difference plus 4.75%.
Joe?
Chief, thank you. I just want to be clear on this. First of all, I want to say I'm in favor of this, because I think any department as busy as we are in our size, I don't know of one that does not have a brass back there, whether it be a lieutenant or a sergeant. My question is this adding another sergeant to the department, or taking a sergeant you have and moving
No,
him back?
it will be adding, because right now we have one sergeant per shift. The Board of Selectmen actually approved that position, probably 1997, when the 4 and 4 agreement was put into effect. That was part of the 4 and 4 package, was to recreate the position of sergeant detective, which would have created 7 sergeants.
Okay, so we'd be adding another person to the department, and then making, you see what my question is, Chief?
Yeah.
Are we adding another person, or are we taking a person who's there and making him a sergeant? Because if that's the case, there's no benefit involved,
No,
because the benefit's paid.
It wouldn't expand out the number of detectives we have. We'd maintain 3 detectives. One will become a sergeant detective.
Oh, so then the benefit question is already being paid, because we're not adding a
We
person.
wouldn't be adding personnel unless there was another influence like
Now
62.
you've confused me.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
not adding a
I
person,
would interpret
no.
it as
I
an
didn't think it
additional
was.
employee. That's not the case.
No.
It's a stipend associated with a particular employee.
It's a promotion.
I want to make that clear.
Fine. All right,
Any federal grants and things. The exposure of the Cops Fest issue that's been out there. Any enlightenment on that particular situation, how we, question from the right?
It's me. Our total exposure is about 152,000, and we communicated with the Department of Justice that the town was unwilling to come up with those monies and write a check, and we'd be willing to enter into negotiations with them relative to either providing some additional in-kind services or having some type of payment plan, but the theory that we're just simply going to write a check for $150,000, we're not going to do it. We're unwilling to do that. And I've asked them to contact me relative to negotiation if that's their desire, and I have not heard back from them on it.
But as far as our exposure, it's there and it's real.
It's there and it's real. It's real. My thought, though, is that it's not something that will immediately come up. It'll be something that, as you know, because it's involving the federal government, I'm sure will take some time to resolve. But really, the ball is in their court at this stage. We've communicated with them what our thought was.
And they've finished their audit work on this project, so they're not asking us for any more information, so now, like Greg says, it is up to them.
They're now aware of the fact that we have a budget cycle, and as a result of having a budget cycle, we can't at any random point in the year just simply write them a check out of surplus funds. And initially, they were not necessarily privy to those facts.
No, should we not at some point recognize the liability and budget for it somehow or another, rather than just waiting for them to decide how they want us to pay them? Because if they don't buy into our program, they say, no, write us a check.
I think our discussions with them can take place over a period of time. I don't expect that we'll be surprised with a bill saying it's due and payable next week or next month. I anticipate that those discussions will take place over a period of time, and that we will bring to our side any and all forces that we have to avoid payment of dollars, including contacting our federal officials on our behalf. That's something that we have to do. Not to my knowledge. Not like the IRS.
They're cousins.
So the most they can do is deny you a similar funding in the future. And my recollection is we don't have any of these cops grants programs as we stand. So they can put you on the list of not receiving future.
Greg, I think what Stephen's referring to is should we, in a budget process, budget some amount over the next, even if this is gonna take 2 or 3 years to resolve.
If it's a third or whatever.
Just so that when when we do have to face recognition of this exposure, that we have built up some surplus to deal with that.
Maybe another account. Definitely would be, it's good to do.
Okay, any other police-related questions? I know we're later than we had hoped, but at the same time, I think it's been extremely well-prepared and valuable exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you for the efforts. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and,
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I like how the chief. Like
Thanks,
to see
man.
Lieutenant.
Question is, what does the fire department do? The fire department in North Reading does whatever it needs to do for the community itself. We're a very diverse group with trained individuals. We do fire suppression. Under that would be ladder operations, pumping operations, water supply, interior firefighting operations, exterior. We need to know about building construction and how to keep our people safe, and electrical. After that, we do fire prevention.